My name is James Dorney. I have the privilege of being the chairperson for this afternoon's forum on litter and illegal dumping. We've got 4 speakers who are going to be speaking this afternoon, and you can see who the 4 are behind me there. I won't go through in immense detail, but we're starting with Sam, through James, Elspeth and Talibal, and certainly look forward to hearing from these 4 this afternoon. Each speaker has 20 minutes. 15 minutes, I'll give a bell. 20 minutes, start to get physical. And we're going to stick to the time, one job. And hopefully if we manage to do that, we'll have some opportunities for Q&A at the end. So I'd like to start by introducing Sam. Oh, you're speaking for Sam, that's right. Yeah, I missed that one. Shaun. Shaun speaking for Sam. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. Shaun speaking for Sam, please. Welcome to the stage. Sorry.
A little to my heart. Can you guys all hear me? Great. So my name's Shaun Devine. I'm speaking on behalf of my colleague Sam Lawson, who had to pull out at the last minute. So last minute being yesterday evening, so please go easy on me. This is fresh material for me, but not new material, so I'll give it my best crack. So I'm going to be talking to you today about effective surveillance strategies for illegal dumping. What I'll cover is, I'll give you a brief introduction of the Waste Enforcement Association of Australia, who put all this together. I'll give you a quick snapshot of their most recent survey results, which is the 22-23. I'll then delve into some strategies and then move into some case studies and then have a look at some business cases as well. So who is the association? It's a group of councils and their members within the councils that are responsible for litter enforcement. It started in Victoria. It's been running for 10 years and has slowly spread its tendrils out into New South Wales, Queensland and Tasmania. So they have a member strategy. It's to collaborate and bring everyone together so that they can really upskill themselves, determine best practice in the industry, and increase the state of knowledge. So what do? They provide training to their staff. This is done on a regular basis. They are also the peak body for research and best practice in this industry, and they advocate as well for members' goals. They also provide consulting services to councils and any other sort of organisation that wants to approach them for advice on litter strategies. So 2023 was a busy year for them. There was a lot of collaboration, over 800 meetings and chances for their members to chat. They also present best practice at various industries and events, including this one. They've forged 3 new recent partnerships and sat in on 2 legislative changes. No industry body would be complete without some sort of industry awards, which they run every year. And Jacob Penn was the last champion for 2023. So every year they run a illegal waste survey. So it's conducted by council staff. It's limited to members in the council. It's conducted in an interview style, and a range of topics are discussed. It's challenges that the rangers and other enforcement officials have to face, the education problems that they have, infrastructure, incidences, collection, disposal, the list sort of goes on. And this is done on an annual basis. So I'm going to take you through some snapshots of the 2022-2023 results. So they've been running the survey for 5 years, starting in Victoria, and for the last 2 years they've expanded into New South Wales, Queensland, and Tasmania, like I mentioned. This is the first year that those new states' data has been incorporated into the survey results. So what's important to show here is the number of incidents that have been reported has increased dramatically, as well as the total cost. But these are absolute figures, so as more councils and members join, those numbers will naturally go up. What you really need to focus on is the incidents per 1,000, as well as the cost per incident. Now, incidents per 10,000 has increased by 8%. That's year on year, so that number seems to have stayed steady over the last 2 years. Whereas the cost per incident is actually increasing. Previous year it was 8% rise, this year it's now gone to 10, so it is slowly creeping up. This is just a snapshot. The full results will be released in about July when they release the full report to the public. So delving into the results a little bit more, the top challenges faced by members is lack of time, transient populations always pulling through their regions, obtaining evidence as well. Circuit breakers that they've identified these are the top issues that they feel that if you address this, life would get a lot easier for them and they could get on with their work. One of the biggest ones is reducing misuse of council services and organisational policy. If we look at emerging trends, this is what members have reported back. The most interesting thing to point out here is the reduced funding, which is really diluting their ability to do their jobs and prevent incidences. The offender profiles is not really meant to call out anyone. They use it to help their education campaigns. So if they see renters move in, they can target a response to particular profiles. So now if we move to the third part of what I'm going to talk about, which is the surveillance types. So members and enforcers have a range of tools at their disposal. Starting from the top, 85% use crime prevention through environmental design. And I will go into these in a bit more detail in the next couple of slides. 70% use overt surveillance technologies, 60% community and communal surveillance, and it slowly drops off to 52% intelligence sharing between agencies, dropping down to about 45% for covert surveillance, and then you've got these sort of outliers of satellites and stakeouts and the like. So how much do these surveillance types cost? They range quite a bit, from about 134 grand down to 7.5 grand. These are annual operating costs. Highest being that overt camera surveillance. Can't quite read the yellow and white there, but significantly dropping down to about 68 for the environmental design. I must just point out that there's no figures for community and commercial surveillance. Apparently the data was not reliable enough, so they've omitted it from this series of results. And the other one, which is remote sensing technology, it's really negligible, so it's also been omitted from this. So if we delve into a bit more detail on these surveillance types, so this is crime prevention through environmental design. It's really just taking a holistic approach at a project inception to design it in such a way that there are clear lines of sight that don't allow people to sort of hide behind anything and do anything without community members being able to see them. It puts community pressure on offenders to I guess, don't break the law, really, because you will be seen and you will be caught. This is best done at project inception for new MUDs or new precincts that they're developing. You'll see it if you sort of live in any new part of a large metro. All your walkways and landscape design is this style of surveillance. Some of the advantages of it, it's essentially a low cost, a cost that's not really borne by the council, it's by the developer. And it really does promote good citizen behavior, which reduces quite a lot of littering. If we now look at the next type of surveillance, it's community and commercial surveillance. This really uses existing cameras dotted throughout the community. This could be businesses' cameras, it could be your doorbell at home, if you have a smart doorbell. It's a great technology, but an enforcer will have to figure out where the incident happened and then sort of expand out to see what infrastructure is in that area that they can then start using. Some of the benefits of it are a lot of residents or businesses, if they're quite keen to help if a crime has been committed, and you can also get eyewitnesses as well who are willing to testify. Some of the disadvantages of it is not everyone has cameras. There are obviously black spots dotted throughout our cities, low density areas, there's not as many cameras. It's very informal, but I guess the advantage of that is it's low cost as well. It's a cost not borne by the council either. If we now move on to covert, so that was overt. This is covert now, where about 45% of councils use this approach. It's discreet, it's a bit more expensive, and it does come with some privacy concerns because it is covert, the opposite of that. But it can be much more structured. It's normally targeted at an event that you're trying to capture. So it's not just on hoping that there's cameras there. You've placed those cameras there on purpose. I'll show you a quick case study of a covert surveillance case. This is brought in by one of the members, so just a little bit of behind the scenes. So a scrap metal business was having trouble with people dumping scrap on outside their businesses, outside of their business operating hours. The scrap business approached the council for some help. The council assisted them by setting up they started off first by setting up proper signage, highlighting the fact that dumping is illegal in that area. The business also put clear signage on their operating hours. 2 covert cameras were installed, as well as using the business's cameras. And what happened was they managed to catch some offenders using these cameras. The cameras were able to pull out the number plate details, they could run a check, and an infringement notice was passed on to the offender. This is working very well. I think 156 fines have been issued, and people are not dumping there anymore. What's happened is all that metal that had been dumped there would be taken into the business, and all the sort of non-metals would be taken away by the council. And there you go, 156 infringements. So this is a good example of how a covert system can work. If we move into the overt surveillance program, remember this is where you've got cameras in plain sight. This is quite a popular technique used. 70% of councils use it. It costs a bit more because this infrastructure, costs a bit to set up. It doesn't have the privacy concerns that a covert system carries, because the cameras are in plain sight. Everyone can see them. They know they're being recorded. Because those cameras are in plain sight, it also deters illegal dumping because people know they're being watched. Just a quick case study of a overt case study. So council was approached by a local charity who were having the same things as the scrap metal business, where people, either good or bad, were dumping materials outside of the shop, outside of business hours. A lot of it was rubbish. So council approached, not council, the shop approached council for some help. They used a combination of covert and overt. Council brought in their covert camera, set up a whole bunch of signage saying illegal dumping, no illegal dumping in this area. The shop also reinforced their business hours, and actually hid a covert camera in the window. And just something to note, that a covert system doesn't have to be expensive. This is just a little, cheap Amazon camera hiding in a box. What was the result? They managed to capture offenders again, and infringements were issued. So when you're setting up a surveillance camera program, what do you need to do? Start off with some research, baseline data, a bit more research, figure out what technology you want, and then develop a business case. So during your research stage, you really need to focus on what you're trying to achieve. Once you know what you want to do, delve into the baseline data. Do you have any of this data? Is it existing? Using that, you can then figure out what you need to do. So once you've checked out the baseline data, have a look at the further research. And this is community engagement, program location, severity of the issue. These are all items you need to take into account when deciding what type of surveillance technique to use. So for example, I'll just read the first one, which is, if you're trying to gather evidence for repeat offenders, what you're trying to do is capture footage of an offender likely skilled in avoiding detection and covert cameras. So you'd have to design a system that take that into account. These are some of the equipment you can use. So if you're trying to capture that covert person who's dumping at night, you might need an infrared camera that has motion detection, and an inbuilt battery that can get you through 12 hours of surveillance. Another quick case study on a technology requirement. So council officers raised concerns. They essentially picked the solar panel technology that addressed their issues. I won't go into that anymore. I just want to jump into the business case quickly. I don't have much more time. All right. So when you put together your business case, these are the things you need to take into account. The setup costs, the operational costs, and then you've got to deduct the infringement revenue, the cost savings from cleanup, and the community benefit, and hopefully you'll come up with a net benefit. So I'm going to run through a quick business case using the average figures from the latest survey. So setup costs can cost anywhere in the range of 6 mobile cameras, 3 fixed cameras, using an external company to set up the program. Cost you about $76,000. These are annual, well, this is the setup cost. The operational cost, these are annual figures for 1 year. It ranges depending on what system you use. Covert, about 134, overt, 134, covert, 59,000, so you've got a bit of a range there. If you look at the revenue, this is taken, again, like I said, from the survey. Cost per incident, 20,000. Revenue from infringement notices issued, 104,000. There is some math sitting behind that, but we won't go into that now. There are other issues, business case issues. We've left this as 0 for this case study. So if you have a quick look at it, it all comes, depending on covert or overt, you could have a net benefit of $65,000 per annum or $10,000 in expense. That depends really on, this is just a high level look at it, but it really depends on what surveillance technique you've used. Finally, some tips on the running of a program. This is data straight from the horse's mouth, so from people in the field. Usual things like vandalism of cameras that have been left out. You need clear footage, so you need proper lighting put in there. You need to coordinate with other agencies. You need to be clever about positioning your cameras to capture ingress and egress. Take a picture of this. And just to finish off, if you have any questions, don't contact me. Please contact my colleague, Sam. He is also the general manager of the association. So he's my colleague, and also his other hat is general manager. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Shaun. Thanks very much, Shaun, for that excellent presentation. I think no one will go dumping anywhere near you or your colleague. I'm more of a covert myself. I like that undercover stuff. But it now gives me great pleasure to introduce James Vincent. James is the Illegal Dumping Prevention Coordinator for the Illawarra Shoalhaven Joint Organisation. We'll be presenting on managing illegal dumping across council and state organisational boundaries. Over to you, James.
Thank you very much. Everyone can hear me? I will get yelled at because I hate standing behind these things. So yes, what are we going to talk about today? What I've learnt in the last 11 years with dealing with 8 LGAs, 11 state and federal organisations, 16 local Aboriginal land councils. I've done 5 local cleanup and prevention grants dealing with multiple agencies. I've done regional grants. I've helped out other agencies and I've helped out other JOs. So my background is I was a nurse for a number of years. I was a logistics manager for a courier company and I was a police officer for 10 years. None of that counted for anything. When you're dealing with the ups and downs of regional collaboration, it meant nothing. So what are we going to talk about? Managing illegal dumping across councils and other areas. Oh, I should read up there, it's right in front of me here. It's a complex task, we all know this. But a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about is a lot of stuff that Shaun was talking about. And a lot of it is if we don't think about the small things, it impacts on the larger things later. So the first thing I'll talk about is establishing clear frameworks. Now it sounds silly, but going to an organisation or starting a grant, collaboration, MOUs and everything else like that, you need to work out who's who in the zoo, who's doing what, where, when and why. An example of that is we had a local charity who was having a lot of dumping problems out the front of their store. So I grabbed council and I said, let's see what we can do for them. And they said, oh, we want surveillance up. I said, okay, we can put surveillance up. And I said, anyone who's illegally dumped outside of the bins will infringe them. Oh, no. We want to have a look at the footage because if they put something outside of the bin that we can use, we don't want them infringed. But if they put something we don't want, we want them infringed. I said, look, it doesn't work like that. I said, one in, all in. And the other expectation was over long weekends, they got absolutely smashed. So why can't council put 2 rangers in the car overnight and catch them as they're doing it? And it's just like a shake of your head moment. But that was their expectation because they didn't know what council had to do and why. They had a big power pole at the front. Just put your cameras up on there. We can't. We don't have permission to do that, so therefore it's illegal. We can't do that. So establishing that framework and who's who is essential. It's got to be done. I'll keep looking up there. Encourage cooperation and information sharing amongst different agencies. This is something we fail in miserably across councils and other state agencies. We don't share. We want to keep it all to ourselves. We don't have a problem, so we're not going to share our information. Yet the people who we're trying to catch don't care about our boundaries. They'll dump on 3 different locations along the same street, but one was Crown, one was National Parks, and one was Council. But yet we don't talk to each other about it. Why? So a good project, a good MOU, a good whatever is always going to have everybody involved. And we need to be able to share. I don't know how many councils actually talk to the local police. Yeah, they're out and about 24 hours a day. So when that charity was talking about having rangers there, I said, look, we can't. But then I contacted the local area commander and said, hey, this is happening over the long weekend, and this was coming up to the Easter long weekend, twice as bad. So they organised extra patrols. Simple as that. This also goes into the data sharing. There are plenty of platforms that we all have, but they're all different. So they won't talk to each other. But can we extract some information that we can share? Now, I know data it's hard to share because of privacy and things like that, but there's surely data that we can share. Public awareness. It's still dumbfounding how I have to put this up there, that we need to educate the public. And we then have to say, what is responsible waste disposal? But hands up how many people have come across an illegal dump site that's only cardboard. It's not new that CRCs have been taking cardboard. It's not new, but people still will dump a trailer load of cardboard when they can go to the tip for free, but they still don't do it. But why? Good question. I don't have the answer. For the New South Wales people, Read Online is a great example of that data sharing and intel sharing and things like that. All of the incidents that happen in my area, the 8 councils, all participate in the Read Online. It means that they can share data. If Wollongong plugs a number plate into the system and that person's been caught in Eurobodalla, boom, up comes the incident. And the thing is, the legislation has all just changed, so repeat offenders, the fine goes up. But if we don't know they're a repeat offender, how are we going to do this? So a platform like Read Online is very good for that. And there'll be other photos of Read Online with hot mapping and things like that. Surveillance. Controversial, yes. Great tool, very much so, but in the wrong hands is a weapon. We've got to get it right. We've got to educate our rangers and other people that are putting it out, but we've got to allow them to put it out. A lot of councils can be risk avert when it comes to surveillance, but when it's done right, it's a great tool. But if it's done wrong, for the wrong reasons, it's not a lawful reason to put it out, or things like that, it cannot be used. And there's been many cases where we've had land managers come to us and said, I've got all these photos. Okay, why'd you put the surveillance camera up? Oh, because we had guys coming in on motorbikes. It's not a lawful reason to put it up. You aren't authorised to give out a fine for riding the motorbike through there. Only the police can. So it's not a lawful purpose. Therefore, we can't use it. No matter how good it is, we can't use it. But we can educate people, educate land managers on the reasons behind how to fix, how to improve, and how to work through it. And then it can be used. Community engagement. We talked about it before, so it's also showing people that we can use Read Online, that they can report, because there's a lot of platforms out there. We know that a lot of people use Snap, Send, Solve and things like that, but it depends on if the council uses that system or not. The Read Online system, for example, no matter where you are, as soon as you plug in your location, it goes to that council. The problem is that down south we're advertising Read Online, Read Online, Read Online, but they go somewhere else and they go, oh, I'll report it here. But it goes to that council wherever they're sitting. And if that council doesn't use Read Online, it just sits there. And then the other thing we need to be aware of is that the community expectations, especially when they've put in, yes, it was a white truck, here's the registration, but council does nothing with it. So if we are going to ask the community to do these things, we need to back it up. What are we doing with it? Give them a call, do all this sort of stuff. But if we don't embed this into our grants and think about this, It's time, it's energy, who's doing it, things like that. Research and analysis, it's understanding the motivations. Now, a lot of us know the motivations, but who can give me the top two? There's two that always come up. Come on, throw them at me. Cost of disposal is the main one. And you've got to think about that anytime you go into social media, anytime you want to advertise what you're doing, especially when a lot of some councils want to do a name and shame and things like that. It's always great. You get the first three on the Facebook and it says, oh, this guy's a grub, he shouldn't have done it, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to about the fourth or fifth and they go, well, if the tip costs were cheaper, he never would have done it. And then the next 400 are on the council's back. What's the second one, do we think? Convenience. I have got examples of people driving past the waste facility to go and drop it in the bush. Convenience, lazy, much more. So the convenience is they're driving straight past the things, but they're just lazy. And the laziness comes from what they perceive to be the cost. So, and that's how we do the prevention type of things. If it keeps happening, where is it happening, why is it happening? So analysis is a big part of it as well. Enforcement. If we don't back it up with enforcement, it's going to fail. The community expects people to be infringed. They expect things to go through, but a lot of councils will get there, they'll hand out the infringement, and I don't blame the councils for this. They'll hand out the infringement, the person goes, nah, I'm going to court elect it, and they go, pull. Because it's not worth the value to the council to actually take the person on. It's changed now because the legislation has pushed the infringements way up higher, but when it was a $1,000 infringement, just to get the person who's representing the council just to the mention hearing has cost them $2,000. So there's that cost analysis side of it, but we've got to pursue them, because if it gets out that every time I get an infringement, I just court elect it and it disappears, what's going to happen then? It's just going to keep going and blowing up. So I think this is a big thing to follow through with the prosecutions. Boundary agreements, very difficult. Councils, again, want to keep their employees, and it's not just councils, it's other agencies, want to stick to their own borders. But that's where we fail again. At the present moment, I've got an MOU with 8 councils. So, it can be done. And then I encourage my councils to have MOUs with their land agencies. And the MOU spells out the framework of who's responsible for what. And the other part of it, especially in New South Wales, we also add a little bit in there to give the rangers permission to put up surveillance cameras. Because that's a need, it's a necessary part of it. You have to be able to have permission to put it up on the land. So the cross-border things are very important. Difficult, yes, 100%, but important. The data analysis again in the mapping system, so that's a screenshot of Ryde online. So it does show you the availability and what it can do through a mapping system. And as we all know, a picture tells 1,000 words. When you put these pictures up and you start looking at them from a holistic view of a map, it doesn't take long to start picking out the hot spots and where and why. And especially when you take the screenshot now, implement your grant and project, and then go back and revisit it. And we tend not to do that. We do the grant over here, and we go, that's worked. We've reduced the illegal dumping over here by 50%. But they've just migrated further down the street, or further up the street, or over here, or over there. So we need to keep an eye on these things and have a look at them constantly. But we don't do that. If anyone who's done a clean-up and prevention grant, who's gone back 12 months later? No one has, because the money's been spent, the grant's finished, and then we tend to forget about it. We know there's sites. What are we doing about it? We can't just keep cleaning up. If it's a site that's open and used all the time for illegal dumping, well, why is it open and used? What can we do for land managers to help them out? Because we know a lot of them are cash strapped and everything else like that. But what else can we do? Do we need to put up gates? Can we help them with boulders? Or it could be as simple as putting mounds up to stop the people getting through. But we need to be able to do something. We can't just leave them there to just continually do it. I don't like the word audits, but we still have to do them. We have to review what we're doing, how we've done it, and can we improve? And that goes back to what I was just saying, that once we've done a cleanup and prevention grant and some of these grants, the grant's finished, we do a final report, off it goes to the EPA, and then we don't go back. So why don't we go back? You know, what has worked? Why has it worked? And we need to do this because this is how we learn. I've got a design at the moment that I encourage my councils to use for a gate that we put up on tracks to limit access. But that gate has been designed over 10 years of failing, what worked, what didn't work, and things like that. And then we pass it on to each other so we can learn from it. But if everyone's putting in different gates all around around the state, and that one failed because of that reason, that one failed because of that reason, and we're not sharing this information and reviewing it, we're just doing the same thing over and over again. And that also goes for our policies and procedures too. So we can't forget that, especially in the illegal dumping area. We need to be reviewing our illegal dumping strategies if you've got one. We need to be reviewing our surveillance policies and procedures if we've got one. And especially with the legislation side of things, the legislation's just changed, so it's going to change all the SOPs and everything that the rangers and councils have been working with is all about to change. Which leads to the next slide. So I've been here for 11 years, and after some huge amounts of pushback from councils and advocating for councils, we've now got an illegal dumping offence, a standalone illegal dumping offence. Now it sounds silly, but we've never had one. There was no specific offence for illegal dumping. We danced around some other offences to actually infringe these people, but now we've got an illegal dumping offence. And the funny thing is, I wrote this about 3 months ago, and I was asking, we need change, and all of a sudden it's come. So the legislation is needed, we need to work with it, the policies and procedures. Now legislation is slow. We know it's slow, but we've also proven with all the stuff that happened in Sydney that with the right motivation, it can change pretty quick. So, but it's a big part of it, I'll leave you with this pipe dream, especially the last sentence. I'm hoping that I would love to be made redundant because there's no illegal dumping, but I also like my job too, so I'll find something else to do. But it would be great if we could eliminate it, but I definitely think there is plenty of purpose and advocation, everything else like that to reduce it. So I hope this has helped. Just remember, the little things count. The things you don't think about or do at the beginning will come back to haunt you and hurt you at the end. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, James. And look, I think we all share that sentiment. We'd love to see you all made redundant also, but something gives me the sense that you might be around for a while yet, and certainly some very informative strategies there. I'd now like to introduce Elspeth Pike, who's a team leader from City of Ryde in the Waste Contracts and Projects Division, and she's going to present on Waste Watch. So over to you, Elspeth.
So, as you've just heard, my name is Elspeth Pike and I work at the City of Ryde. And before I launch into my presentation, I just wanted to begin by acknowledging the Gumbaynggirr Nation that we're so lucky to meet on their land today, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So I'm going to be diving into a bit of a case study on an illegal dumping trailer which we've been using at the City of Ryde for the past 6 years. So before I begin talking about the trailer, I thought it'd be great to introduce you to who the city and what the City of Ryde is. So we're a local government area about 12 kilometres northwest of the Sydney CBD, and we're home to just under 136,000 residents. And our area is, of course, predominantly residential, but we also have a huge educational sector with Macquarie University and a large TAFE. And our industrial areas are primarily technology and innovation focused. So as you might guess, the type of dumping that we are dealing with is predominantly in residential areas. It's mostly non-hazardous, and it's typically small quantities that, if it's from a resident, would likely be eligible for a household cleanup collection. If it's not eligible, there's probably a free or cheap place to dispose of that waste within a short distance, maybe a 20-minute drive at most. We do have hotspots, but they are spread out around the LGA, and those hotspots continuously change locations. So when we were looking into investing in an illegal dumping trailer, these were the considerations that we had at the back of our mind. And starting in 2018, or 2017, when the procurement for the trailer was occurring, we had an illegal dumping task force, and we had surveillance. We had bollard cameras. But there was a limitation with the bollard cameras that we found, in that, being covert surveillance, we often found that they weren't actually capturing illegal dumping incidences. But what we did find is that the community knew that we had those cameras in place, and they were thinking about and talking about changing their behaviour based on knowing that surveillance was in place. So the plan was, let's increase the perceived threat, but rather than making it an unknown threat, we'll show you exactly where it is and what it is. So let me introduce you to our friend in the field, our surveillance trailer. And just going through the statistics of the trailer itself, we have 3 PTZ cameras on the top. And if you're not familiar with what that means, those are cameras that we can change what they're looking at, and we can zoom digitally and manually. There's also a solar panel, and there's a 10-metre mast that those cameras are on top of. On the trailer itself, which you probably can't really see the details of, there's also 4 fixed cameras on each corner, and those are actually mostly for asset protection. We can stream or USB download any of the footage, and it comes in a tamper-resistant recording format, which means it's much better to use in court if we need to. And on the outside, you can see this lovely image, which of course has our compliance messaging that dumping is illegal, because of course we have to tell you that dumping is illegal and fines may apply. But more importantly, we're trying to tell people that there is an option to have a free household cleanup collection rather than choosing to dump. So as I mentioned before, our program focused on kind of exploiting 2 main characteristics of the trailer that were really useful for us. The trailer being overt and the trailer being mobile. And the trailer being overt has allowed us to really develop trust with the community, because if the community can see that their trailer is watching them, they know that council is taking action, and they know that we're not trying to conceal what we're doing. We're telling them exactly what we're doing, we're telling them how we're doing it, and we're showing it in place. And what that's allowed us to do is, rather than having a compliance response to dumping, we're actually breaking that cycle of behaviour before it occurs. So it helps us to set expectations with the community, that this is a location that we're aware of, we know you're going to dump here, so we are not going to participate in that. We're going to turn up, put in a camera and watch you do it, and there will be a compliance response. The mobility is actually also fantastic, because essentially it lets us use these cameras as an extra staff member. We can move it around, we can respond to hotspots as they develop, and we don't have the financial cost that we had with bollard cameras, which was approximately $300 every time we had to remove them or put them back in place, because on top of staff time to move it, because you had to bolt it in, we often had to put in concrete footings. So I figured you'd want to know all about the costs, because that's the first question that everyone always asks us. So when we were initially purchasing the trailer, the 6-month trial and then the purchase cost was in the vicinity of $85,000. It's now currently utilised as a leaseback vehicle, which is running just under $10,000 a year. And last year, there was a further expenditure of replacing 4 batteries and upgrading to 4G for another 10K. An ongoing cost, which fluctuates greatly depending on what prices are at, is the electricity used to power it. Because whilst it does have a generator and a solar panel, we've found that it does need to be charged about once a week. We tend not to use the generator because it's in very urban areas and it disrupts people, and we can't really schedule when the generator goes on very easily. Additional resources is that we already had a vehicle that was assigned to the waste prevention officer, but that had to be upgraded just to ensure it was big enough to be able to tow the trailer. And the waste prevention officer, he utilises about 1 hour to 1.5 hours to move the trailer. So because of charging, it usually is about 3 hours a week. Further, we've had to do training and allowed time to review footage. And we had to have a dedicated location for a charging station. So what that means, in essence, is that it's about $25,000 per year for us to run this trailer. Which, if you're thinking about staffing costs of having someone in the field, is quite efficient. So looking at the statistics of where we were just before we got the trailer to where we are now, and of course acknowledging that there's been a huge amount of other work in the illegal dumping sphere, but particularly for council, in 2017-2018 we had just under 1,200 dumps reported to council, and we removed 126 tonnes annually. By 2022-23, which was the last financial year that I have full data for, that is now reduced down to 938 dumps with 58 tonnes removed by council. And I want to put a bit more perspective onto that because Ryde is one of the biggest growing urban areas in Sydney. So in 2016, which is the last census data, there was 110,000 people recorded in Ryde, about 33% of which lived in MUDs. Now, we're estimated at, as I said before, just under 136,000 people, about 53% of which live in MUDs. So that effectively means that we've gone from 1 dump per 94 residents to now being 1 dump per 145 residents. And the community response to this trailer has been really interesting. You can see an image of our ex-mayor here, who was in a promotional campaign for the trailer in the Daily Telegraph with the staff member. And the community has divided into kind of 2 main responses. The first group is people who are annoyed about illegal dumping, and they're so excited to see council taking action. And what it allows council to do is share in that feeling of pride of place, because we're both responding to issues, we're both caring about keeping a clean and tidy community. On the other end, even though this is overt, there is actually still a lot of concern about privacy. So, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but one of the most important things that we've found is to have a really good idea about how we are maintaining people's privacy and ensuring that we're compliant with both legislation, and in our case we do have privacy policies and we do have quite strong processes to dictate how and when the trailer is utilised, and we only have 1 staff member who deploys it, and so that staff member is well trained. No one else is allowed to play with it. And I thought I'd just touch on a few uses beyond an illegal dumping focus, because if this is something that you're looking at, you probably might want to think about opportunities beyond illegal dumping. So we have previously used this as surveillance at large community events, and we've had further requests by the police for us to use this trailer at particular events. And we've also used it to monitor commercial dumping in public place bins. But beyond that, other programs which I've had requests from were monitoring heavy vehicles on weight-limited roads and monitoring vehicles entering and exiting large developments, particularly through mud tracking. So, factors for success. There's a few that are pretty key for this. So one of them has really been the buy-in across council. We have our waste team who manages and deploys the trailer, but then that any incident that we capture with the trailer is investigated by rangers. And because it's such a strong community interest, having the councillors on board with this program has been crucial for success. Strategic integration for the program has been really important as well. That has gone across, our waste strategies, but also a really strong understanding of legislation and policy, and setting up with each of these team service level agreements and MOUs and SWIMs in place, or SOPs where required. Being able to dedicate sufficient resources is quite crucial. This does take management, it does take maintenance, and that needs to be factored into its use. And finally, those policies to support staff and reduce community concern. So at the moment, after 6 years of operation, we are actually reviewing how the trailer is being deployed, and we're having a look at our surveillance policies and procedures to make sure that they're still relevant for the community. And just some final key learnings before I go is that what we've found with this trailer is that pursuing a compliance outcome is actually very challenging. We found that even if you are lucky enough to capture someone dumping something, and here's just an example picture, this is from our trailer, even if you see them dumping the items, you may not have enough identifying information about that person to be able to pursue any kind of prosecution or fining. But where we found the main benefit is its impact on the community. Because having a trailer that's very visible and in place really undermines confidence that you can safely dump. And it also means that even if a trailer is not in place, someone who might be dumping around the right area, who knows that we have trailers that can move, they know that we have camera surveillance, they feel less confident in dumping. So they might choose not to dump after all, or unfortunately they might go to an adjacent council area, but at that point that's not my problem. No, it's all about undermining this feeling of confidence, really, and that's where we've found the real success with this program. So that's really been our case study of the trailer. I did leave time for questions, but I think we're probably not going to do those, are we? We'll do at the end. Cool.
Thanks, Elspeth. Thanks again for that presentation and some very helpful insights there into the Waste Watch program and what's been achieved in the City of Ryde there, which is quite significant. I hope everybody is storing up lots of interesting and juicy questions, but while you think about some of those, we'll get to the last presentation in this litter and illegal dumping session. And I'd like to introduce Talibul Islam, who's the lead specialist for strategic waste at Randwick City Council. Talibul's going to be presenting on a holistic approach in illegal dumping and litter management in Randwick. Over to you.
So, good evening, everyone. I can see everybody is tired after that long day. But I promise you, very good information I'm going to present to you. Maybe some of you will be benefited. So, what I'll be talking today is a little bit of information about Randwick, which are very relevant to illegal dumping. And then I'll talk about the research we have done, community engagement we have done, and co-design workshop we have done to develop illegal dumping management plan. But when I was listening to James, to Shaun, and to Elspeth, it looks, the background information they have given, maybe I could skip everything, could go to the planning. But I'll take you through those. Now, Randwick Council was established in 1859. The second council in New South Wales after the city of Sydney. So it's a very old council, and there are lots of histories around that. I'm not going there. The important thing what I have to tell you about the council, that we have 9 beaches around our city. So that has some linkage to littering, because hundreds of thousands of people are visiting our beaches every year. So they're doing good things and living something bad as well. And then, what else is relevant? Say, we have 2 educational institutions within our LGA, same like Ryde. So here is UNSW. UNSW has over 63,000 students. So they're either living a bit farther down the road or within council, but on the way, maybe they're littering, but when they're living there, maybe they're doing something not they should have done. But that we'll see in a few moments. So the TAFE, and then the Royal Randwick Race Course is within the council. So they have races at various times. That has impact on littering. So how have we been managing illegal dumping and litter? In 2011, we did develop illegal dumping and litter management plan. The focus of that plan was education and enforcement. So I've taken the advice from James, but I didn't talk to him. So enforcement is included and education is included. So what we were getting, when we implemented that plan, the illegal dumping incidences was reduced from 22,000 per year to 11,000. Great achievement. But I would like to mention here that 93% or 97% of our illegal dumping incidences are of residential nature, because the whole area is residential. We do not have much of industrial area. And so over time, that achievement was going downwards. And we ended up collecting about 14,000 of illegal dumping per year. I said, what is going on? Then we made some changes. We joined Reed Squad, and they were using enforcement, James thing, and some education. So that helped to improve a bit, so we went down to 13,000. But is it enough? No. We want better outcome. So what can we do? We are thinking, we have to take different approach and look into illegal dumping and litter management plan. So back to the drawing board, say we have to do something different, and we took 3 steps to develop the new illegal dumping and litter management plan. So it's detailed research, community engagement, and co-design workshop. And that led to a new illegal dumping and litter management plan. So I'll give you a little bit of more on what research we did, and then I'll go to the engagement, how much engagement we did and which way we went. So you can see the legislative and strategic policy framework. James said that is very important, and we touched on that. And then what is the best practice control? We looked into that, who has done what, who was successful, was not that successful. Then we looked into behavioral and social studies, and we analyzed data from illegal dumping, and we went for dissecting our community profiles and see, is there anything we can use? And what services we provide, interviewing the ground staff, and getting a little bit of more. And then we went to sites again, various sites. So let's see a little bit of information. Maybe I won't have too much time to go in depth, so I'll give you a gist of the findings. So behavioral and social studies review showed that there is only and one motivators for the dumper. As I said, all our dumpers are residential. Is convenience. And then we found that fear of getting caught and aesthetic impact of illegal dumping on the community, and someone else will have to clean it up, and judgment from the neighbors. Those are the deterrents. So, okay, maybe we have to consider those things. So this is from the behavioral studies, and then best practice control, what James was talking about, hotspot management, and that installation of CCTV. And also we found a little bit more that increase of lighting through sensor lights and improvement of public amenity is the best way to go about hotspot management, and also improvement of waste infrastructure, education, enforcement, partnership with government and other agency, engagement with the community. That is very important as well. So when we dissected our demographics, what we found? We found that 56% of the population live in apartment buildings. So yeah, there may be something on that. And then 47% of the population are renting properties. So yeah, to think about that. And then more than 2% of the population live in public housing. Another important thing here is about 32% of the population do not speak English at home. So that is another signal what we can do. However, the average weekly income in Randwick is quite high. So this is the positive side. How can we use that? And unemployment is quite low. And also, the qualification rate and education rate in the population is quite high. So we are thinking, maybe these things we can use in our planning. And then we are thinking what services we are currently providing, are they adequate or not, what is happening there. So we are providing substantial amount of services. So we collect cleanup through our scheduled cleanup once a year and 5 on-call cleanup. And then we have more than 500 litter bins across the city, and we clean our footpath and streets, beaches. So good services we are providing. Still, we have to collect illegal dumping and collect litter outside the bins. So that is another thing we have to consider in the planning. And then prevention activities like we have CRC, we are running 2 events per year supported by EPA just to get rid of all the hazardous material. And we also run a recycling center where people can take their excess waste. So we are doing well there, I think. And then, say, enforcement activities. As I said, we joined Ryde Squad, and they were enforcing the law, and they are providing some education services as well. So it looks we are doing well what we should have done, what's going on. Then we did a correlation analysis using QGIS. Someone mentioned GIS. So doing that, we were using our illegal dumping hotspot data. We were using our services, what services we are providing, how much we are collecting from the hotspots areas and the liters from this hotspots area. We sort of using the QGIS thing. You can see what is moving continuously, showing what data we collect. We brought those together, and we found very interesting finding that the higher level of illegal dumping and litter incidences happen in the places where younger groups, lower weekly household income groups, UNSW students' accommodation, and recent overseas arrivals, and not speaking English at home areas having high level of illegal dumping and litter. And also we found that high level of on-call services help reducing illegal dumping. So that means when people are calling when they need to get rid of their hard waste and clean up material, then the number of illegal dumpings are lower. And also another thing, say cleanup services. Who are using the cleanup services, and what are the implication of that on our illegal dumping? It says younger population, they don't bother calling council. They don't have time. They have to go to bar or enjoy their life. And they don't make phone calls. Just one phone call, and we'll go and collect. So they don't do that. And also we found where, say, high rental price areas, the tenants, they make more phone calls to get rid of their things. And these are very interesting findings. So we thought, yeah, that we can use for developing our plan. And what did we do in the community engagement, and why did we do the community engagement? Our objective was to see what is the awareness of illegal dumping and littering in the community. And also we tried to find out how much of our services, very good services we are providing, how much of that are being used by the community. And then what is the community's sentiment about illegal dumping and littering? Are they taking it easy? Oh, let it go, it's fine. Or not? And also, what the community thinks the contributing factors for illegal dumping and littering. Not only what we think, we wanted to find out what they think. And then, what are the solutions they think And we wanted to find out those. How did we run the community engagement? We were running community surveys. We were running using a mapping tool to get more information. And also we are using phone call and asked people to send us email, and that gave a good information. So from those responses, we found there are a few good suggestions. So what are those? They think that we could put more litter bins in some specific areas. Okay, we are hearing what you are saying. And then they were saying that beautification of illegal dumping hotspot surely will help reducing our illegal dumping. And also they said communication and engagement with the community surely will help. So we got some ideas from here, we got some ideas from our research, and then we thought we better workshop with experts. So co-design workshop. And to the participant, to the experts, we provided all the information, what we collected from community engagement and the research. And then we said we'll let them brainstorm, they're experts. And then we'll streamline our solutions. And then we gave them 3 challenges area, what we found, mostly from the research, that reducing illegal dumping near multi-unit dwellings and engagement with that population, and how that can happen. You brainstorm and tell us. And then we said, yeah, some more brainstorming is needed. The other challenge is pride of the community and how we can develop that pride in the community. Brainstorm and tell us. And then again we said, pride of the residents and the visitors. How we can improve that? How we can incorporate in the community more sense of pride. So we left the participant to workshop on this, and then through the research and the engagement, we found quite a bit of proposed solutions, what will work and how we can achieve our goals. And then we selected the top 10 solutions from there. And then we gave to the workshop participants, to brainstorm. It was for all day work. Said, you tell us 4 most important solutions out of those 10. And then maybe we'll go for selecting which one are the right and prioritizing using a matrix. In the matrix we have high impact and say high innovation. So they told us that communication campaigns, beautification, reuse drives, and data-driven decision will be the best solution for managing illegal dumping and litter. Okay, we got now all the tools, all the resources, and all finding. Now we are developing the illegal dumping. So I got a signal that I have to stop. So this is the crunch point, and this slide I will cover everything. So we develop our targets. So we develop 3 areas, targets. So reducing annual incidents of illegal dumping, reducing annual litter incidents, reducing illegal dumping quantity. So there are targets, short-term and long-term. In 3 areas, I don't go in details. And then we try to find out what are the priority areas we can work through to achieve those goals. So interestingly, the most important priority areas was harnessing the strength and power of engagement and communication. And the next priority was building community pride. We got the information from the previous slides you have seen. And then to support our community to do the right thing. And optimizing our litter and illegal dumping services. We think we are providing this service, maybe something else we can do to optimize that. And then the 5th one was improving compliance through enforcement. And we didn't left James in this equation. And then we developed the illegal dumping plan, and that illegal dumping plan has actions, and most important actions were to implement, develop further actions, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And not only developing illegal dumping or whatever plan. If you develop a plan and put under the desk, you will not see anything. So we have to implement, and council has committed to implement this plan. It said, okay. So there are various areas to implement. Someone needs to coordinate and drive it. So they approved a new position for engagement and coordination. And then services we found that we need to optimize, and we have started reviewing our cleanup services. So, and we will be evaluating and monitoring. And that's how we want to achieve our goals. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, folks. Thanks again, Talabul. Highly informative from the Randwick City Council, as have all the speakers been today. So, in a display of sublime emceeing, we're right on time, if I do say so myself. You had me worried there, mate. Did you hear that bell? Oh, you did. You just ignored it twice. Okay. I was going to have to order a new bell for next year. But look, we've got 10 minutes. Don't think you're getting an early mark. We had some fantastic content, expertise, knowledge from Shaun, James, Elspeth and Talabul. So open the floor to any questions. First question.
Hi everyone, thanks for the lovely presentations. I'm from the ACT government. My name is Nishi. My question is mainly around the close relation, the love-dove relation between bulky waste and illegal dumping. So the territory offers bulky waste services, and it's on a programmed, scheduled basis, which requires bookings, and it's in high demand. However, especially as usual, the problems arise when it comes to muds, where the bulky waste is laid out, presented by the residents, say, a day or 48 hours in advance. However, seeing the rare opportunity, especially for the paid items like mattresses, etc., there's a legal dump on the pile, which is not that easy to move around because it's bulky waste. And when the contractor comes, it's the illegal dump, which is on the top, and that's what's collected. And the resident comes out to find that the booked items are still lying there, and to make it worse, within a couple of weeks, they receive a fine from the rangers. So other than surveillance, I was just curious what other councils or other parties are doing, or if there's any proposed solutions to manage this, and also to identify or to segregate or to identify which of, I don't know, how to classify the two.
Do you want to have a go at that, Talibor?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Can you hear me? Okay. So how to differentiate booked service and illegal dumping? And in Randwick, we have a process which can identify illegal booked services. We have a list of booked services and the addresses, and then this is what we check against illegal dumping identification process. So we take the list of booked services and see, yep, are all those booked services, there are complaints, and then we check against that. We say, oh no, it is booked service. But if it is not on the booked service, we jump on the case. So, say, a few years back, we did develop an application to check through the application which is illegal dumping and which is booked. And then we are passing those to relevant enforcement people.
Elspeth, did you want to add something to that from the Ryde Council point of view?
Yeah, so we have a couple of methods that we use in Ryde, and it's from the perspective of when someone goes to book a collection with us, we actually ask them to categorise what type of waste they want to get rid of, because we have some removal for recycling, and that's particularly through, we have like a television and computer removal service, and we also ask them to identify if they've got any white goods or mattresses, because that will influence how we collect it. The next thing is we set up what expectations that we have of putting an item out for cleanup. So we tell people that if they've put it out any earlier than the night before, we are considering that as illegal dumping and it's not compliant with our expectations. The meterage that we give them is 1.5 cubic metres, but our agreement with our contractor is that they'll actually accept up to 2 for one collection. The other thing that we have is we allow people to double book for the same location. So if the contractor arrives and if there is an excessive amount of items placed out for collection, we allow the contractor to remove up to 2 full collections, and we allow them to remove one of the bookings from the resident. So we allow people up to 5 pre-booked collections per year. Our main issue actually is with the MUDs, in that our current situation is that a whole building has to book together. That's something that we're looking at our next collections contract, because it has created quite a few issues. But, and then we're also reviewing how MUDs collections are occurring in general, whether it's from curbside or from an internal collection. Also, come talk to me later if you want a bit more.
Cool. Folks, any other questions? Got a couple more minutes to go. All right, well, look, I'll just provide my insights on today. No, just kidding. Okay, so, look, if there's no further questions, I'm sure that if you need to grab any of today's presenters, I'm sure they would be more than happy to have a one-on-one discussion. So, again, I think we all should put our hands together for today's presenters. Shaun, James, Elspeth, Talibor, fantastic session. That actually closes out day 1. Tonight, there is the welcome reception for those keen to attend, starting at 5:45, 5:45 p.m. in the outdoor exhibition area. So hopefully most people can make it along to that, and I look forward to catching up at the conclusion of a successful day 1. So enjoy the rest of the conference, and hope everybody found today's session on litter and illegal dumping helpful and informative. Thanks all.